Hi, Warren Whitlock here. Emerging technologies, is what we're talking about. And I hope to share with you some things that are coming and some things that are here today and how to deal with that to make your life better and make your business and career do better. And just all around have a good time. It's an exciting time to be alive. So many things happening. One of the things we've talked about in many episodes, if you've been listening at all, that I like blockchain. I think it's an amazing technology and it's changing the world in so many ways that are just hard to enumerate. But what most people know about blockchain is crypto. And today we're talking about things that aren't crypto. The cryptography that makes blockchain work is great and it allows for us to have cryptocurrencies. And again, great a topic to talk about. Many episodes just on Bitcoin alone. But today we're going to talk about the other things that you can do with blockchain. And just a quick refresher, a blockchain is like a database, or my simple example is it's like a spreadsheet. When we first had spreadsheets come out, boy, was it so amazing. Not only could it put a number 3 in a cell and then put a number 4 in a cell, and then in a third cell add cell 1 and cell 2 and it would display a 7 and you'd say, wow, that's great. Loved spreadsheets. But what we mostly use spreadsheets for is here are some rows and of information. And the first field will say somebody's first name, second one will say a last name. The third one won't do a computation on that, but may have a phone number. Fourth one may have an email. And while computation can be done, it's mostly about how it's stored line after line. And what blockchain does to make this spectacular, better than spreadsheets, is that each time you add a block of rows, depending on the blockchain and the architecture they use to set it up, a group of rows, let's just say 10 to be exact. You have 10, they have a certain amount of information. There are some technical characteristics about the exact data that's been put in there. How many are filled, how many are not filled, whether or not the ASCII characters that make up what the background numbers that are stored in the database. If you add them all up, you get a number, usually called a checksum, something like that. And then you have a lock on that data. That block of data means that. So these 10 rows get a QR4C, and again, the code I made up. And then the next block starts with hook this on to the QR4C and then add some other things to it. What's different is instead of having data that like a spreadsheet, you can go back and change that number 3 to a number 6, and then it adds 4 and the other thing says 10, and those kind of computations. Or you can decide, hey, we were wrong about sales from the West Side branch. We need to update that. In proper accounting, you don't update a number after a period's closed. You put a correcting entry in at a later date. And that's what blockchain requires. Once it gets stored, it's immutable. So this technology does a lot more than just be able to keep track of if I want to send some of my wealth to you in exchange for something you're sending to me, and it gets recorded on a blockchain and we know who owns what. What what it can do besides that is just to eliminate all sorts of auditing and double record keeping that is needed to make things happen. And they say in the history of business that things were at sometime back in the past not written down and you just kept track of here's 3 apples and I'll take 2 bananas and just pure barter. And at some point they started writing it down, and the ledgers of what happened were subject to the memory of the person that wrote it down versus the memory of the other party to the transaction. So that pretty much led to what's called double entry bookkeeping. And it also makes it easier to audit, which is just making sure things are where they're supposed to be. So if I say I gave you 3 apples and I gave the next guy 10 apples and the next one 7 apples, boy, already I'm having trouble keeping track of how many apples that was. Simple arithmetic, but yeah, we have to keep all those things in our head. We write it down, okay, fine. If we forget to write one down, end of the day, we got less apples than we thought we had because we gave away some to somebody and forgot to write it down. Double entry says you have a quantity of apples, and every time you sell one, you deduct one. And now what blockchain is allowing us is triple entry accounting, which means not only are you going to make sure that it's written down in two places, and my ledger matches your ledger and all those kind of things, but the auditing of being able to check everything is going to be there in an immutable record that neither of us can go back and hack, and it allows us to do things without establishing a trust in that relationship. All for trust. And in fact, the first thing I want to talk to you about is how you can build trust with a technology meant to mean we don't have to trust each other. We can trust the books. And it's called zero knowledge proofs. This is an interesting thing because so much of the information that I need to share with somebody to get through life, let's just say you're trying to buy a car and you need to know whether or not you have worthy credit to drive off with the car and actually make the payments you said you were going to make. If you don't make those payments, it gets written up and then they don't give you any more good stuff. And so that's a nice thing to know. And it's also good to know if, especially like in business, if I'm going to borrow millions of dollars, the person lending that money might want to know what contingency plans there are in case I get hit by a truck tomorrow. And so that's we get into life insurance and many other things like that. Who else you have on staff and things like that. Of course, to be able to get that policy, you need to know something about credit worthiness and you need to know medical history. But do I want the guy that's selling me a car to have my complete medical history on a file in his office where who knows what could happen to it? Even non-malicious, so many bad things could happen to it. Maliciously, it's what spies do. Go and find that kind of information. What if instead I could tell the car dealer that I have good medical history, show them that, or that I'm a licensed driver and show that? And then perhaps maybe even a simpler one, to be able to enter into certain places, you need to prove that you're an adult. And so you need an ID, and that ID will state what your birthday is and has a picture that looks like you. And outside of forgery, it's a pretty safe system to know we're only letting adults into the nightclub. But at the same time, it has your home address on it. So that means that you go walking in and somebody can, at a glance, see what your address is. It'd be a little tougher for them to memorize it or copy it or whatever, but that also is done. What if there was a way to show your ID and only show your birthday or proof that you were above a certain age? Because they don't even need to know what your birthday is. They just need to know whether or not you qualify to get in. And that's called a zero knowledge proof, in that I give to you what my age is or my ability to be over a certain age. Maybe I don't want people to know that I'm an old man, just that I'm an adult. You could tell by looking at me, but it's let's just say that it's a situation where you don't want to be discriminated against because of age. That could also be all the other things that you can be discriminated against: race, gender, et cetera, what part of town you live in, all can be there. But if your ID had what is called a ZKP or zero knowledge proof, it would be able to show just that. And thanks to blockchain, we can do that. You can have your identity through a trusted source, take all that information, put it on something, and then when you say open your phone with your digital ID, the person looking at it can only see what they need to know. And they can't keep a record of it because it's a yes no decision and they're on to the next one. Even if they keep a record, it's only the yes no decision. And so that's an area where a lot more can be done, which means we can have our financial history, our credit worthiness, our health, all sorts of things available, and not have to worry about the fact that my dentist office has a file clerk making near minimum wage to try to keep track of that stuff and maybe susceptible to whatever scam would be collecting the patient's data. For one thing, they know you go to the dentist, you're there for a while. They know it'd be a good time to call their crony and have them rob your house. They don't need to know that information except for on a certain level when you choose. And that's what zero knowledge proofs are about. A lot of work has been done on that. There's a lot of nooks and crannies about how it's done, but it's available today. We don't all have it because, again, it's got to work its way through the system. Your state has to allow to have a driver's license that's a digital app on your phone that follows certain rules and is verified in certain ways. And all those kind of things are being worked out as we speak. Another one, trusted execution environment is, I'm not going to bother with the acronym, a TEE. This is where when you're doing secure computing, we used to have everything that was done in computers were done on large machines at super secure locations that only worked in the bowels of the big corporations or the banks or whatever government. And then as the PCs came along, it became possible that I remember how it was for me. I was a salesman at the time, and I would work hard, make sales, hard to keep track of what I was selling and how much it cost because of the various contracts and things like that. Whole different department did the billing. We'd submit the orders and they would all be tallied up. And we would get a report near the end of the following month. So January's report would come out at the end of February to tell us how well we did. There was no incentive to try to see whether or not something was counted in 1 month or another for a bonus. There was no, oh, I'm really near making my quota. Let me go ahead and work an extra hour tonight so I can. And so that kind of incentive was there as a commission salesman that I just couldn't see. I could tell that my numbers were going up over time. Was very frustrating because I'd done some other jobs like that and been able to tally how much I'd sold and have a good idea of what it was. But when the personal computers came out, we were able to take that information that we're used to waiting 3 to 6 weeks to get and instead be able to tally every day. So instead of a tally sheet where I wrote down what my sales were, I was able to enter it into my personal computer, would keep track of that. It would help me reconcile when the other reports came out to make sure I had something had been misbilled that I'd worked on and enhance things. And the revolution that happened then, that's the time that the spreadsheets came out, that people could do analysis and make decisions at their desk instead of having to wait to get a special report from the computer department, or in my case, have to wait for it to be shipped from 2,000 miles away. And from that, we went into being able to put everything on our own computer. Then the internet came along and we started sharing things and we started putting stuff in the cloud. I have a t-shirt that says the cloud is just some other guy's computer. And that's true. If it's a data center and it's got 10,000 computers in it, it's still stored there. And you have to worry about, is it safe? Well, there's protocols to transfer the data safely, encrypted, VPNs, and other forms of encryption. You can password protect a file on your own. Then wherever you send it or whatever you do with it, it's got that level of protection, not only the password, but those kind of things can be cracked and hacked. And what happens when it goes to a cloud is, let's say you're going to AWS. Yeah, Amazon is never not going to stay in business if they're cracking open your file and reading it on a regular basis. They value that safety there, but some of the ways the stuff is stored, it may not even be safe from your own interactions with other files in the system. Let's say I have a cloud disk drive and I store 3 files there and I share that connection I use that for my word processing program and I also use it for my spreadsheet. If they can talk to each other or whatever, I can screw something up. I can accidentally delete a file. There's all sorts of things that can go wrong. But there are now environments that have an extra layer of blockchain verifying to make sure that there is a separate space at the cloud service, some other guy's computer, wherever that is. So no longer, and by the way, I trust cloud computing. I don't think there's not much that I don't share and put up in some public place that only I can get access to. And there's lots of, boy, that's a whole nother show by itself. But, but it's still, you've got the problem of that you're depending on another company, their trust. If you've dealt with one of the major companies, pretty good chance they're not going to go anywhere. Should you have a backup? Should it be local? Whatever you do. Now, in places where they really care about that, they're making private clouds, which is what this TEE is, or trusted execution environment. The code can run there. It can access the rest of the cloud, can't even access the rest of your own data, depending on how you want it. And it comes in two varieties, one on the cloud, and one you can actually run it on your own device. So if you do want to be super secure, you can have a cloud-like service running on your own computers. And that's going to allow more trust where there really isn't any trust needed. This is one of the beautiful things about being able to, even in cryptocurrency, be able to move it from place to place. I don't have to be somebody, and we trust each other. We spend a lot of time together. By the way, in today's age, that means these human relationships more important than ever. But you can do business with somebody that you don't have that relationship with. Credit cards have allowed for that. Telecommunications have allowed for that. That we all deal globally with being able to transfer things and get along and speed up the world, and reducing friction just means that we all have a chance to get something else done. And so that's the beauty of being able to trust an environment and not have to trust that a person with the key is going to always have your best interest and looking to take care of you. And automation, there's work being done on economic experiments with a digital twin. It's locked down by the rules of smart contracts and blockchain, and they're running scenarios about what will and won't work. And we're able to just compute so much more. In a future where we have AI robots doing these things for us, we're going to have to trust that they can get along with each other and communicate when they're supposed to, and not get together and plan an uprising when we don't want them to. And so you need to keep track of things. Another area where blockchain is being used is in governance innovations. You may or may not have heard of this, but there's a new form of a institution to put people together. The entity is called a DAO, and Distributed Accountability Organization, Distributed App. We'll put that in the show notes, what that means. It is a new form of a corporation. We have corporations, we have LLCs, and now we have DAOs. And a DAO can be set up somewhat like a co-op. People get together, decide they're going to work together on certain things in a venture, and the accounting, the voting can go on. In this, it's been outstanding. We could form a partnership where I could say, hey, you're a listener of my show. I'm giving you one token of ownership in my show. And we would all grow together with that. That is not an offer, by the way. I have no tokens to send you right now, but in theory, I could have tokens, and I could say, you get a token because you signed up and subscribed to the show. And I could also then make a rule that says, when you tell somebody else about it and they sign up, I'll give you another token and give them a token. There could be elaborate rules to how these things are done. And I just saw some research where in Colorado, they're doing co-op law, the law that make cooperatives work, so that if you and I and 10 of our friends decide to open a store and supply groceries to the co-op, then by being a member, you can get discounts because there's no profit in it and everybody works as a volunteer. The goods come in and we take our turns helping each other. The bookkeeping on that can get elaborate or be simple. Just we'll have a shipment come to my house and here's a key to my shed, and anybody that's part of the co-op can go in there. Or maybe you have an ID card, or maybe there's different rules. They're now building these things with, you can have more influence if you have more tokens, but only to a certain level. Or if you want to have twice the influence you need to have to get twice the number of votes, you need to invest 4 times as many tokens. Or here's a proposal we'd like to do to change the way we govern ourselves. And you can vote, and everybody gets 3 votes to vote for various things. You spend all 3 votes on one thing. Innovative new ways of doing that can happen. And also, we can use the existing structure of how co ops are working and build all sorts of new ways of cooperating and getting things done. The nice thing about putting the governance into technology and on a blockchain so that it's kept track of that way is not a lot of arguments about who did what. It's a, because it's right there in black and white. And the other thing is it can be designed in any way that humans could get along, and then spend most of our time talking about what we could do to do things better. Hey, this co-op of us all buying grapes at a discount and buying a truckload of them and distributing them in the neighborhood. Hey, that works fine. What if we did potatoes? Probably potatoes would work better than grapes, but excuse the absurd examples, but we could do that. And think of how that's going to work when we have self-driving cars. If I choose to own a self-driving car, I can share it with my neighbors by programming in that anyone that is a member of my neighborhood DAO can access the car with certain parameters. Maybe I get an extra priority scheduling because I own it and paid for it. Maybe others pay something on it. Maybe I send a VIP service. And I'll tell you right now, that's keeping me from getting a new car. I don't go out of this house very much at all. And when I do, I have somebody pick me up, take me to the airport. But wouldn't it be nice if my car could go take me to the airport and then go do a robo taxi service for the next week that I'm gone? And when I come back, it's scheduled and doesn't let anybody else schedule the time that I need to be picked up and brought home. Does it need to be stored in my garage? I don't think so. So who owns the taxis and where they go and how they're housed and who charges the robo taxi so that it's ready at all times it needs to be? All are things that are like some of the tough things in having ownership. I know we just had a problem around the house just yesterday, and it took it what seemed to be many hours of me working on things. At the end of the day, I ordered a part and I'm waiting for it to be delivered and wondering why I'm stuck with being the guy who orders the part, puts the part in when it's supposed to be serviced by somebody else. And at the end of the day, I just go, I can't think of a faster way to get this done. And as we get more of these components taken care of, so virtually everything has a serial number, is automated, or we have a bot to take care of it, it's going to allow us to live richer lives in so many ways. It might be that we sit around and sit on the couch and watch TV or play video games, but maybe not. Maybe we decide we want to help out somebody else in the community. And bringing this to reality is going to take a whole lot of us that are able to go out and find ways to help people that are less able. Today, still in the world, there's a lot of people to feed. There's a lot of people to help that are in bad situations get into a better situation, into permanent housing and things like that. But as we start solving those problems, it'll go up and up to what we can do, freedom of travel. And we'll actually all be able to go on a vacation for as long as we want and know that our lifestyle will be maintained by the systems we put in place. And I know that's possible because I've been studying what emerging technology does. And I hope you'll join me in a better future.